Hello everyone, this is Warhawk Beyond 2040 and welcome to another edition of the Black Lightning Season 4 review series. And today I am going to be talking about Episode 10, The Book of Reunification, Chapter 1, Revelations, which I have just finished watching. And this episode was a really good follow-up to the last one, and we saw a couple of twists and turns along the way. And this was highly enjoyable as we are getting closer and closer to wrapping up the end of season 4, which is also the last one for the show. And as I said, this was a really good follow up to the last episode. And before we get started, I'm just going to give a quick recap of everything that's happened so far, and then we're going to get straight into talking about episode 10. So, as we saw, Lynn has been arrested and she was stripped down in a very uncomfortable scene. And as we saw at the end of the episode, we saw Jen losing her powers and falling from the sky to the ground. And we also saw Black Lightning and Anissa also losing their powers as well. So this was a result of Tobias turning on his device, which caused all of the Pierces to lose their powers. And as we all know, Tobias Whale has been on a one-man mission to systematically destroy the Pierce family one by one. So this episode pretty much picks up where we left off at the end of the last one. So, with that all said, let's get right into it. Let's talk about episode 10, The Book of Reunification, Chapter 1, Revelations. So, this episode picks up where we left off, where we see Jen is falling rapidly to the ground, but a force field that is part of her uniform stops her from falling to her doom. TC figures out that all metahumans have lost their powers. Black Lightning's fight continues with Ismail, and with Black Lightning powerless, the assassin almost wins, but Gambi activates the suit's stealth mode, which allows him to get away. Grace pushes Anissa out of the way of a speeding car just in the nick of time. We also see Anissa and Grace go through Darius's apartment, looking for the data he had gathered, and they find it. Everyone gathers at the sanctum looking for answers. Detective Shakur calls Jefferson, alerting him to Lynn's arrest, and at the precinct, Shakur tells Jefferson that he trusts Henderson's estimation of him, so he lets Jefferson have a few minutes with Lynn. Lynn is terrified as the charges against her are dire. Jefferson tells her that they have lost their powers. Her attorney, an old friend who is also very expensive, shows up to help. Jefferson has to leave, and he leaves very quickly. We also see JJ goes to stay with Vanessa and Grace, and JJ is struggling with not having any powers. At Tobias's crypt, the machine continues operating, and it turns out there is a bracelet that counters the dampening effects. Tobias is ready for the next phase of his plan. Jefferson kills everyone on Lynn's situation, and Anissa reveals that Lynn called her and she called Keith the lawyer. Anissa is also paying Lynn's $3 million bail. Wow. JJ is obsessed with getting her powers back. TC had Phil Key decode the drives for Anissa, and we see Khalil is now going after the ledger and goes into painkiller mode when security shows up. He gets the ledger. Lynn gets released from jail with an ankle monitor, and there's tension because Keith is actually Lynn's ex-boyfriend. TC shows up at Anissa's with the data and discovers that cystic fibrosis treatment was a cover-up to harvest metagenes, and with just a little explanation they realize that Tobias is behind everything. Tobias takes over the Cobra cartel. Ismail also now works for Tobias. Gambi goes over to the Pierces and talks to them about what they found out. Lynn realizes that Tobias used Val to get her research, and Gambi realizes that Tobias has the emitter. JJ decides to electrocute herself in an attempt to kickstart her powers. She is unconscious briefly, but it turns out it actually worked. She gets her powers back but needs more power. JJ decides to go to the ionosphere again to recharge. We also see Lauren confronts Gambi at his home for stealing promethium. She accuses him of taking the emitter, aka the device. He tells her he doesn't know who took it, but he will find out. Using the ledger, Khalil discovers that Looker is important to Tobias and on his payroll. Tobias receives a package that emits some sort of blue light, teleporting him to a meeting where he reports to a group of others he is trying to impress and join with, though he is frustrated with the outcome. And we also see in the ionosphere, JJ experiences something unusual with the particles, but manages to make it back to Earth in time. However, after restoring back to normal, we see remains of the energy are still left in the sky. And that pretty much wraps up the end of episode 10 and my review. Overall, a very good episode, a great follow up to the last episode. I do wonder whether or not they're setting up for Jen to actually die because this is now the second time she's come close to death. So obviously they're planning something very big for her. So we'll just have to wait and see, really. But the fact that the emitter is dampening everyone's powers makes Tobias even twice as dangerous. But we'll just have to wait and see, really. But overall, I really enjoyed this episode a lot, and this was a great follow up to the last one. So that's going to be it from me. I am going to wrap this up now. What's your thoughts on episode 10? Did you enjoy it? What are your thoughts on this emitter that Tobias is using? Do you think the pieces have a chance of destroying it, or do you think Tobias will eventually be able to defeat all of the pieces? And also, what do you think the situation is with Jen? Do you think she will eventually die after these close brushes with death? You know what to do, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below. And I will be back next time for another edition of the Black Lightning Season 4 review series, where I'll be talking about episode 11. So until next time, take care, everybody, and stay safe. And once again, thanks for listening.